Hello guys. I'm going to do another couple videos on reset day. So just to give you some extra optional practice, trying to pick questions that I feel like cover a variety of topics. So this one is going to be over chapter or section year 213, number 6, which covers chapter 6, which was the separate and integrate. And then the next one that I'm going to post on this reset day is from 2012, and it's a curve analysis integration question from chapters 3 and 4. So trying to stick with those particular topics. So this question from 2013, it was the last question. Really no need for a calculator anywhere here. The first part of it, they gave you a differential equation. You can tell just by looking at it that you know you're eventually going to be asked to separate and integrate. They didn't do that in part A, but they did that in part B. And then part A is asking you to use that equation to write an equation of a tangent line and make an approximation. So anytime you're writing a tangent line, you need two things. You need a slope and you need a point. The point was provided, 1, 0. The slope is going to come from the derivative, which is written in this implicit form with x's and y's. So the first thing I did down here is I put 1 in for x, I put 0 in for y, and I found my slope to be -3. Once I have that slope, I'm going to take that and the point and write it in any form, point slope or slope intercept, to finish that piece. And then the last part was to make a prediction of using the tangent line to figure out what would happen at 1.2. So you're going to put 1.2 in where the x is, multiply. Again, if you have a calculator, this was a non-calculator question, but you'll have the calculator on the AP test if you need to do quick arithmetic. You should get a value of -0.6. So the scoring on this was 3 points, They kind of generous. Usually it's only 2 points for this, but they actually gave 1 point for the slope, 1 point for the tangent line, and 1 point for the approximation. So you have 3 points that all kind of go together. So I think if you get one of those, it's pretty easy to get the second and the third. And then part B is the separate and integrate, which you know is going to happen with these. It's just a matter of when they ask it. So with this, going back to mine, it wants you to find y equals f of x, given the 0.10 to get a particular solution. I put a little mark around y equals f of x, just making sure you realize that that means that you do have to get y by itself before you're done. So coming down here to part B, I just made a little note. I'm going to separate and I'm going to integrate. So I separate by bringing the e to the y to the other side. And really, that's about it with the separating. Your x's were already all on the right. When you integrate it, and a couple little notes I made here, when you integrate this, it's probably easiest to think of this as e to the negative y, and then to do a really short u sub. Your u would be the exponent, -y. Derivative is -1. So there is an adjustment that is so easy to miss because it's so minor. So that's why I have a negative here. The integral of e is e. So you get the original, but you do have that adjustment in front. On the x side was a little bit easier. It's all just power rules. Your integral will be x cubed minus 3x squared plus c. At this point, you can decide if you want to find c right away, if you want to simplify. I kind of did a little bit of both. I simplified just a little bit, and then I went and found c. The only simplifying I decided to do is I didn't like having a negative on this side, so I divided everything on the other side by a -1. You don't have to change the c because c is a constant, whether it's positive or negative. And then I went in and put x for 1 and 0 for y to find my c value. So my next step was putting that in. E to the 0 is 1. That's why I have a 1 here. And then I put 1s all over here. And I got c to be -1. So then I come over here. So I have this work here. I need to get y by itself. So to get rid of an e, I have to take the natural log. Now, when you take the natural log on an equation, you take the natural log of the entire side. It's not an individual piece thing. So when I take the natural log over here, it's the natural log of all of this. I put it in absolute value bars. I noticed on theirs, they just put it in parentheses, so it is not necessary as long as you realize it's the natural log of the whole thing. I still have a negative in front of the y. When I take the natural log and the e, they cancel. So I'm going to divide or multiply both sides by a negative. And this is my final answer, really similar to what they did. So I'll show you the scoring and their breakdown. So 6 of the 9 points come from this part. So 1 point is separating, it's just, again, getting your e to the y to the other side. If you don't separate, they stop grading. Then you get 2 points for integrating, which I like because I think the e side, the y's, is a little more complicated. So that's a separate point. So if you mess up the adjustment, for example, if you forget the adjustment, you can still get a point on the x side for integrating it correctly. If you use your constant of integration to find your initial condition, these 2 points kind of go together. You get 2 more points. So they put the point in right away. I divided by a negative first. Either way works. You get to the same thing. And then your last point is, did you get y by itself by taking the natural log? And notice, like I said, I used absolute values. It's just habit. They use parentheses. You'd be fine either way. If you don't separate, you get nothing. If you separate, integrate, but then don't put a plus C or ever deal with finding C, then the most you can get are the first 3 points. The note is not necessary. The note is just making sure that it's part of the domain. You can't take the natural log of something negative, but does not factor into their scoring. So if you have all this, then you get 6 points. Again, 3 points for part A. So overall, relatively easy question to end this test. A lot of different skill sets going on, but all coming from the same chapter this time. So the next one I'm going to do is I'm going to go over 2012 number 3. That'll be the next video and possibly the last one that I make, just kind of going through knowing that the test is less than a week away. I will talk to you guys later.